I think Justin Wilcox is in a very interesting year because I saw a line that was out there. It was like first head coach to be fired, right? And it was giving out all the odds, like it always does. You're seeing Dave Aranda on that list, Billy Napier, Clark Lee for some reason. I don't know. I mean, he could get fired. I don't know.
Sam Hartman,
So
or not Sam Hartman, Sam Pittman.
Sam Pittman, Kalani Sitake. I saw Justin Wilcox on that list, and
Criminal.
I thought that was
Wasting money. You're wasting money if you're
you're
doing that.
wasting money if you're throwing money on Justin Wilcox to get fired because A, what a coach job by him last year, by the way, getting them to a bowl game. That was
Yeah,
unbelievable. That was unbelievable. Okay. I mean, look, Fernando Mendoza, okay, may not have been the best quarterback of all time, but they were a top 35 team in points per game. Okay. They were a top 25 team in first half points per game, right? Coming out scripted, right? They were fast paced. I thought their defense was pretty decent last year, and they did not benefit at all from their schedule last year. And a Pac 12 that was the best, most deep Pac 12 that we have seen in years. And they still made it to a bowl game. Credit Cal. I thought they did a fantastic job coaching last year. And there's in zero way, I don't think. I think, yeah, there's pressure on Justin Wilcox to like win, and now he's in the ACC and but I really I still believe in Justin Wilcox. I think he's doing some good things here, and I think that this team could be pretty decent, And I guess I want to start with the offense because I want to start in the quarterback room, and I'm looking at their two options, and they seem all right with me. I'm okay. Look, there's a quarterback battle going on. I don't know who's going to start. If you've heard anything, CD, about who's been announced as a starting quarterback, but I feel good with either of them. Right? You don't have to tell me who's starting a quarterback for Cal week 1. I'm going to feel pretty decent about it.
Yeah, what a total change up from it was just a year ago. I remember you had Ben Finley, Sam Jackson, who's now a wide receiver at Auburn, and Fernando Mendoza all battling. Mendoza was the best quarterback out of those three for sure, and it showed 63% completion percentage, 1,700 yards, 14 to 10 touchdown to interception ratio with a brutal schedule. And I think not only do they bring in some weapons in the portal, you return Jaden Ott. I like the way that this offensive line maybe meshing together. We'll see how it does. But regardless, though, yeah, I'm with you. Chandler Rogers, redshirt senior, Fernando Mendoza, sophomore, redshirt sophomore kind of kid.
CJ Harris.
Either way, you're good. Yeah, yeah, he's not bad
CJ
as
Harris
well.
has meaningful snaps in the MAC, by the way, when
Yeah,
Curtis Rourke got hurt, however long, 2 years ago that was. So
yeah. So
I feel great about
listen,
this quarterback room.
if I want to feel great about this team, I would love to have seen at least one of them, but more so Rodgers come in there and really dominate and take the bull by the horns. But it just didn't happen. And credit Mendoza for sticking in there and fighting it out and battling. And I'm sure his team loves him. And really making this decision tough for this coaching staff. But I'm with you. Yeah, either one I feel good about. Depending on what happens with how it shakes out, I'll go down with either one of them. This offense still around them, it could be pretty fun. And it starts with Jaden Ott. Jaden Ott. You took him in our draft, I believe.
Yeah, I
He's a
did.
stud. You want to talk a little bit more about him?
Well, just an all around guy, right? You want him in the return game to be effective. Do you want to run between the tackles? Do you want to see his breakaway speed? Do you want to see him have hands? Like, what do you want from him? All right, he's got everything. He's got the whole entire bag. He probably, in my opinion, I got to think about this for a second.
He's probably the best in the ACC.
Yeah, that's not crazy at all. That's not crazy at all. And he would have
And
been.
there's some
He's
good ones. Hampton, there's Hayne. Like, there's a lot of good guys. And Miami has like three of them. But no, Jaden Ott is a legit dude.
Bill
And I think,
Maffa. Did you just
yeah,
omit Bill
you
Maffa
love
when
Bill
talking about
Bob.
best running backs in the ACC? That's criminal.
I think
It's
I think
criminal.
AC I think ACC fans are gonna get a rude awakening to Jaden Ott because maybe they don't catch him on the late night,
No.
Pac-12 Pac-12 after dark type. He's awesome. I mean, he ran 1,300 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns. He had some nice receiving, like you said. The versatility between the tackles, outside the tackles, breaking tackles, breakaway speed, whatever. Yeah, he does it all. And then you bring in Kadarius Callaway, who's a great changeup as well from Jaden Ott too. Now we'll see if Justin Williams Thomas gets healthy. Hopefully, he's back by the season. But regardless, I think there's going to be a huge drop off from Ott to Callaway. I think there's depth in that room, but there's still a big drop off just because of how good and how star studded Jade Knott is. So hopefully he stays healthy and hopefully he gets another 250 carries, because if that's the case, I feel really good about this offense and the direction it's moving with Justin Wilcox.
Yeah. How do you like the rest of this running back room?
You got some young guys. I mean, I mentioned Callaway and Williams Thomas. We'll see how JV and Thomas and Brown Caldwell, get developed and they're pushing along, be fighting for some of those reps, especially trying to
Yeah.
spell Ott and Callaway. So we'll see. I mean, it does rely upon it. Listen, there's a lot of bodies in that room. I think you feel fine about giving carries, but it's just a lot of bodies that aren't named Jade Knott. And so it's like
Yeah.
anyone where Jade Knott's not getting a carry, it's going to be a downgrade. And it's not no fault of their own. It's just number one is so good.
Well, yeah,
And
and
remember he almost left too, right? Well, wasn't he in the portal for a little bit, or
well,
he
I think
announced
he
he
was
was going in the
teasing it, but then
portal,
he
and
he had
then
his no, he faked going to the portal. He posted that video where he's like, "Thank you all so much" or whatever, all the Cal fans, and then he's like, "But I'm here to stay." Basically, like along those lines. Basically, kind of faked him out. So
okay,
it's
yeah, that's
pretty
what it
awesome.
was.
But also, like, I'm not so much as worried about the depth of this running back room because I think if Jay Knock gets hurt, like there's is such a significant drop off. Like I don't think it. You get what I'm trying to get at? Like your 2 through 4 don't matter that much. I guess it does matter because if Jay Knock gets hurt, but I'm saying like the drop off is so big regardless. Like this offense and running back room revolves around Jay Knott being there and being healthy. So like we can talk all we want about Galloway, Thomas Cardwell, Wiley. Like we can talk about those guys, but Jay Knott gets hurt. It is a gigantic, nearly unquantifiable loss to this offense.
Now, in a room that's a little bit more parroting, I think that wide receiver room is pretty darn deep, right? I
That
mean, you
is
lose Jeremiah Hunter, he goes out the room,
who
and he
cares?
was a very good player, right?
He
Well,
was.
who
He was.
cares?
He
He's
was.
going to
He
be a
was.
damn good player at Washington,
He will.
and he was good for Cal for a while. But there you bring in a bunch of transfers, right? And you pair that with guys who are developing, with Tron Grizel, right? Marvin Anderson, Nazir Hunter, like these guys, they're all been taking their time developing. Mason Starling, is he developing, making plays? Is Cole Mosca making plays there? But then, you got your guys. You got your guys in Tobias Merriweather. You got Mikey Matthews. You got Keon Grays. Jonathan Brady was a productive player in the CUSA, the CUSA last year.
All good
I love
players.
it. I love the versatility body types. I love the versatility play style. I love the depth. I love the production. I love it all. And I think Chandler Rogers did a great job picking Cal, because they did a great job surrounding these quarterbacks, whoever it may be, with some really good talents, not only at the running back position with Jaden Knott, but also with some good receivers. And they're kind of young. It's multiple years of eligibility, too. All these
Yeah.
guys have at least 2 years of eligibility.
When I think about positions that you want to have a problem with heading into transfer portal season, right? Wide receivers at the top of the list, like in terms of like you don't want to have problems with your
O line,
your interior
quarterback,
defensive line, your
edge.
offensive line. You can have problems with quarterback
What?
because like think about all the transfers that have panned out really
Good
well.
point. Yeah, Max Brosmer.
But
Jalen Rogers.
Jalen Rodgers. But I'm just saying, like, wide receiver is a very plentiful position in the portal. So them going and getting 5 wide receivers, like, yeah, like clearly was a problem heading into the season, given that Jeremiah Hunter was leaving. But I think they addressed it well. Like guys that have had targets, receptions, meaningful playing time at the Power Five level, or in Jonathan Brady's case, just being really productive in the situation that he was in. So I I very much like this wide receiver room. Is it like, do you have your big time playmaker? Is that going to be Merriweather this year? Right? Is that going to be Mikey Matthews? Right? I don't know. If someone's going to emerge from this room and be really, really elite, is it Grizel? Right? I don't know. In the aggregate, though, I think that if you get something from all of these pieces, you can have a pretty decent wide receiver room that can give whatever quarterback is going to be starting a chance to push the ball down the field. And I think that's also amplified, but what you have in the tight end room, you know?
Oh yeah. Andrews is great, man. I mean, he had 400 yards last year at the tight end position, and you bring in Corey Dyches too. I mean, well done, Cal.
There were
Well done,
about
Cal.
30 tight ends, I could say it was probably like 27, 29 tight ends in college football last year that had more than 50 targets. And you have 2 of them on this team. You have 2 of them.
Yeah, think about that.
That's pretty
And
crazy.
now Maryland's happy with their tight end situation, but that just feels a great need because he's an old guy. He's a senior dude. I mean, Andrews is a young kid. He did as a redshirt freshman last year, right? So it's a really nice pairing to have, and two tight ends too. It what you can do with 12 personnel. I mean, we talked about that a little with Boston College with running 21 personnel or whatever maybe, but 12 personnel, having different body types, having different matchup styles, having different formations that you can run in is incredible. It's really, really valuable, especially with the portal situation where you got a lot of these defenses that are kind of being stitched together. And you look at week 2, and who is that? It's Auburn. And that's a team that's a super winnable game, I think. And they're a team that kind of working together on their defense. And if you have a lot of things you can throw at them with your offensive weapons, that is totally a plus, especially early in the season.
Yeah, I'm not saying neither of these guys are good blocking tight ends, so there isn't. I don't think there's a ton of as good as both these guys are. I think it's a little bit redundant in the sense where like I don't think either of them are great blockers, but we'll see how they're used, right? And it could end up being, uh, they still could end up being good blockers. They can develop. Guys can always put on weights. Guys can develop in that manner. Like, I just don't know what we're gonna get from them, from a run blocking capacity. Uh, considering that the offensive line, I I'm very concerned about this offensive line. Is that how you feel, or are you a little bit higher on this offensive line?
I'm trying to be optimistic. Listen, you bring in 4 transfers, right?
For
And
need,
to me,
because you need transfers,
you
right?
need, yes. And to me, I wrote that this is the group that could prevent it from reaching its over. Like I'll tell you right now, I'm taking the over. Like I am taking the over, and I might go. Um, but the problem is it's tough. It's tough. I mean, Nick Morrow, right? How is he progressing there? I mean, he's a redshirt senior,
You need
right?
him
But
to.
again,
You have to have him as
I'm
a
sorry, Nick
piece,
Morrow. He's a freshman, redshirt freshman. My bad. I have that written down
Well,
wrong. But
but
regardless,
you are going to need pieces, but like the starting five, it can be what it is, right? I don't feel amazing about it, but you are going to be playing against some good defensive lines. 3 of them I can think of before week 7. And if any sort of attrition starts happening, you're going to need to rely on those guys. Like guys like Nick Morrow are you're going to need to ask the question like is Nick Morrow ready, right? Like that's not a crazy question from you.
yeah. To me, what I liked about it and why I was comfortable with taking the over is that there's not a ton of star power where it's almost like there's a lot of competition. And I think it's more so you bring in these transfers, Will McDonald, you bring in these Rush Reimer, right? To you, maybe take the burden off or even just add depth. And so like you don't have to have these young guys step up and play. And you see guys like Nick Morrow, right? You see guys like Sione Vadikani, right? Um, or Siope Vanikani are taking the steps up. And so now you're seeing, excuse me, there's like 8 guys and they're kind of all replaceable. So that's how I almost if that kind of makes sense where it's like, yeah, no one's kind of standing out, but it's also like there's not a huge drop off. So if there is attrition that does happen, kind of to counter your point just a little bit where it's just kind of whatever. I mean, it's kind of the same piece going in. And I guess if maybe the ceiling isn't super high. Now the floor under those guys, I think is not not a good sight to be at all.
No.
So I guess we'll see what happens there if they do get into their serious depth. But listen, you got enough guys that are above the drinking age that I think can do serviceable work.
Like I have legitimate questions about every position on this offensive line. Like at center, Matthew Wyckoff, we haven't seen it from him. Like we haven't seen him be a really good football player yet. We have yet to see it. Vadakani, I have the same question. TJ Session, at times he's pretty decent, but he's a redshirt senior now, right? Like, are we going to see that much more from a guy who started like 900 snaps last year? He was okay, wasn't great. Okay, wasn't great. Now, what you do like is that continuity on the right side. You know, none of those 3 were really that good on that right side. If you know what I'm talking about. Well, actually, I don't know if Vatican's going to play left or right. I really don't know. But then, you bring in like these guys, these transfers that you brought in, they're G5 guys. And I've seen this happen. We've seen it happen time and time again. And you're
Yeah,
playing some
that's
good
a good
defensive
point.
lines. When you bring up G5 guys on the offensive line side, there are a few special exceptions, right? And I can think of a couple of them.
Well, even yeah.
But it's just a handful, right? Like if you're going to depend on Will McDonald, Victor Stoffel, like to plug a hole, Rush Reimer, like if you're going to rely on those guys to plug a hole in a need, I don't know if you can guarantee that, right? So with the thing that they didn't see in the Pac-12, now they saw some of it from some of those teams, but the thing that they're going to see different in the ACC is I think there are some legitimate defensive lines that they're going to have huge issues with it, and they don't even draw Clemson, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and those defensive lines, luckily, those defensive lines come early, so like lucky and not lucky, right? So attrition can happen in those weeks, and then you might see the decline in those last weeks when you're actually going to have an offensive line that matches up maybe well with their defensive line. But it can also benefit you, right? Like once you get past that level, you're like, okay, breathe. Now we move,
Nothing's
and we're healthy. We can win this last stretch of games, right? Because down the stretch, they have a very winnable slate of games. Okay.
yeah.
But before we get to their schedule, let's talk about their defense because last year it was pretty dang successful. Okay. Um, and I liked a lot about it. I really did. I think I don't know. It's gonna be fine. Is that how you feel about it?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I feel pretty good about the D line, and then even though you're replacing some good guys at the linebacking core, it sounds like they're building some depth, which is good.
Yep.
Um, Cornerback room could be a strength. I guess we'll get into it. I kind of want to start with that D line and maybe the edge group, right? You got Xavier Carlton, who's been looking good. Obviously, it's a pretty known commodity there. David Reese, is he going to step up, right? You got Fall coming in from Eastern Kentucky. It sounds like he's having a good camp. Takungura, coming in from Missouri. He's been flashing a little bit. Ryan McCullough, he's been stepping up. It sounds like he's flashing, which is good to see. Maybe as a young kid in year two. So listen, that just named five guys right there, and that's a great place where you want to be at the edge slash outside linebacker position. I know they kind of run that is 2-4-5,
Yeah, it's pretty odd.
which is wild to see. But first of all, I love that. I mean, everyone loves that in Madden and NCAA, right? Where you're running the 2-4-5 nickel, and it's just
I mean, that's basically what you're recruiting, though. I mean, when we played, I mean, we would. I mean, you're basically recruiting what? I guess like long, lanky guys that are super fast in your edge. Even if you run a 4-3 or 4-2-5 or whatever, you're still recruiting those like
yeah, it's
outside
not that
linebacker type
crazy.
guys on the video
Now it'll
field.
be interesting to see how it hold up on the run, but that's why you have your interior guys. That's why it's so important because you only have two true defensive linemen on the field, but you've got a lot of veterans. And you're pretty deep there, and now maybe nobody's this crazy star, but there's a lot of guys that you feel good and comfortable playing meaningful snaps in the ACC, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I feel good about it too. Like in terms of like the interior defensive line, like I'm fine with what they have there, right? In Burrell, Wilkins, whatever. At linebacker, I think at the top end, you're pretty good. It's going to depend if like some of those lower level transfers kind of pan out, right? I mean, you're bringing a guy, uh, Princeton. Uh, God, I can't even figure out what school that is that
As UC
Buchanan's from.
Davis, Teddy
UC Davis, that's
Buchanan.
right.
They
Buchanan,
they play in week one, by the way, which is awesome. Which is
a
awesome.
little revenge game. So yeah, if those guys pan out, and I think the staff is pretty decently high on them. And they selected those guys specifically, but I'm like I feel okay about the front seven. Like that's not what I feel good about on this defense, if that makes sense. There are other position groups that I feel exponentially better about on the back end, right?
Yeah, I mean, Elam Zor was a good player, right? He's a good player, and so you're definitely gonna miss him. But yeah, I mean, if Buchanan can come in and can play well, even though he didn't, I don't think he came until the summer, so that kind of hurts the development there. But the beauty of that too is you were able to build depth in the spring. So you got guys like Kate Olave, right? In year two, you got Aaron Hampton, who's playing really well for a young guy. might be fighting for that 2 deep spot. So you were able to build depth there. Hopefully, Liam Johnson, you know, gets healthy at some point soon because that would be nice to have depth there. So a little bit behind those guys, you can get into some tough spots, but you're also only playing 2 at a time, right? You got that 2-4-5 defense where you only got 2 inside linebackers. So again, not a position where you have to be 6-7 deep. 4 will do, unless you have a real, disaster of injuries. But then that just happens, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
In this secondary, I feel pretty dang. Noel Williams is a dang good player. All right, dang good player in that secondary. Guys like Marcus Harris also seem to be having fantastic spring and fall camp. Transfer from Idaho that they're super excited about. Again, a lower level guy, but that's the kind of guy where you start hearing that buzz from the coaching staff, and given that there's some serious competition in that receiver room, sounds like it could be real. The buzz for Marcus Harris could be pretty real. So I'm all right with him being in there. You get back an experienced safety with Craig Woodson. Hearns is also incredibly experienced as well. You just got some really nice pieces in here that have played a lot of football, and I like that.
Yeah, and you also got, guys like Colin Gamble coming back from injury. There's depth in a lot of places and versatility too. And I think Wilcox and Peter Simon can do some fun with it, right? Where you have, guys like Wagner who can play nickel, Little John, and Gamble. These guys can all kind of move around. Hearns returns to as a redshirt senior. He's a guy that's been there, and he played a good amount of snaps last year. So it's again, yeah, exciting what you can do with that versatility. Miles Williams, is it finally his time there? Or is it his time? Because, it sounds like there's some good things coming, his way. This guy, redshirt senior, has been there for a while. I'm hearing some good things so far, and I hope to see that because again, then you're building you're building depth with guys like Yates and Sydney behind them. Obviously, Craig Woodson comes back. So overall, yeah, this could definitely be a strength, I think, of their defense, that defensive back room, and that's what you expect for Justin Wilcox. And what is this, year 7 now? Year 8? I mean, it's been there for a while.
Yeah, and special teams wise, I think you're pretty set there. Ryan Cook coming in, transferred from Cincinnati. Cincinnati from Cincinnati, then UNC. I think he's pretty solid. And then your punting game last year, at least hopefully I have the right numbers here. I'm just gonna double check. Yeah, I think we're good on that. Yeah, so if I'm looking at this right, they were a top 30 team in punting yards average. I think they had trouble covering punts at times last year, but as long as you have a decent punter, you're gonna at least give yourself a chance to be pretty decent on special teams. So I'm gonna head over to their schedule, and I'm looking at the schedule early on, right? UC Davis week 1. Okay, you're all right there. Auburn on the road, San Diego State at home, FSU on the road, bye week, Miami at home, then Pitt on the road, NC State at home, Oregon State at home. Then you get a bye, Wake Forest on the road, Syracuse at home, Stanford at home, SMU on the road. Talked about this. Playing some pretty good defensive lines early on in the season, namely Auburn, FSU, Miami, Florida, and I'll throw NC State in there. So where are you going with this? The over-under, actually, I know you were looking at this earlier when we were talking about it at 6.5. It's actually 6 at most places, believe it or not. That's going to probably help your case even more.
Even more. Yeah, I'll take the over. I'm on over at plus 146 at 6.5. So I feel pretty good about.
But for our bettors out there, if you are going to take this over, you should be taking it at even or minus 105 at DraftKings or at BetMGM, and not be taking that plus 146, because that is the math involved there, is that is better value. Okay.
I wish you were there when I was doing that. Regardless, so I still feel pretty good about it.
That's so fans. Brutal. I just outed
listen,
CD.
listen,
But hey,
listen,
let's hear it.
They could go they could go 5-0 at the end of the season. Like really realistically, with Oregon State with the bye week, and then that stretch run in November where it's cross country at Wake Forest, but it's Wake Forest, and then it's Syracuse. You welcome them to fly across the country. It's Stanford and at SMU. To me, I feel really good about this team. If things break certain ways, I don't see why 8-9 wins is not crazy. I mean, 9 wins would be an incredible season, obviously an incredible season. But again, I mean, yeah, I like it, man. The one at Pitt scares me, week 7, because you're kind of in between a pretty tough
That's
stretch.
such a
Florida
losable
State
spot. Sandwiched right in
by
between there.
Miami and NC State at home, and you got to go back and forth, right? It's not an ideal spot to play, but also Pitt is terrible. So I'm sorry, but so I feel pretty.
But I
Listen,
think the schedule dynamic there, I've chalked that one up as a loss for California. When I do their schedule breakdown, yeah, I chalk it up as a
yeah,
loss.
it just sometimes those happen. But listen, I was a guy that was under Cal, and I still think it should have went under whatever, though it didn't, because Justin Wilcox proved me wrong and this Cal team proved me wrong. And so again, I'm learn my lesson this year and I'll be on the over.
If it's at 6, I think I'll join you. I'm not betting it though.
Maybe I'll double down and just bet over 6 as well.
Bet over 6. Well, you were just alt lining, so that's what it was. You took the alt
Because
line.
I'm so confident that they're gonna win 7 games that I might as well take the extra value.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going through your head. So I like UC Davis, obviously, San Diego State, Oregon State. I like them, and I do like them in that game.
Mhm.
I like them against Wake Forest. I like them against Syracuse at home. I like them against Stanford at home, and then SMU on the road. I kind of like them there. I think 7-5 is more likely than 5-7, but I think 6-6 is the most likely outcome, as indicated by these books, right?
Which is a
As
bowl
indicated.
game, by the way. It's a bowl game.
Which is another bowl game for Justin Wilcox. Believe it or not, people that want him fired. This line actually opened at 6.5, so you're not crazy. So people are fading us, CD. The Sharps are fading us.
Sharps are stupid. Sharps are dull.
Sharps are dull. Put on that t-shirt.